is Thursday, July 9th, 6 o'clock, and this is the Windsor PlanningCommission. Calling this meeting to order. First on the agenda, public comments. Is there any public comments from the public? Hearing none and seeing none. Changes to the agenda. There's really a small change. Number 5 should be there. That should be on the next agenda. That's my fault. I said that. So we're going to strike 5. There is no select board feedback yet. Anybody have any other things? Any changes to the agenda? All right. So let's go to approval of prior minutes, which were very in depth, and I think did a great job with the Is there anything that needs to be amended to that? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Make a motion. Second. I'll second. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. So now we're going to go directly to Martha. And Mark is our consultant for the town plan, and they're going to be assisting us through every step of the plan. And she is going to guide us through the beginning of the meeting for where we're going from here.
Thank you. Hallie's trying to get me online. I don't know if anyone is online yet.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
So it's not money there.
I can't share documents yet, but if you want copies of things, I have some extra. Yeah, I'm live right now, but someone joins. Let's share my screen. Sorry, technical. Good.
I can.
So I had sent you all a copy of a review I did of your town plan mostly in terms of compliance with state statutory requirements, but I did note some other things in there that just jumped out at me as perhaps needing some attention. So it's not strictly just statutory compliance. Kind of at a high level, I'll just run through some of the main points. So the land use plan, I'm sure you're all aware of the changes to the future land use map based on Act 181 and the changes to the future land use categories, because Mark has incorporated those changes into the regional plan, and that plan, there's a second hearing coming up soon on the regional plan. Once that gets adopted, those future land use plans will be that.
You want to join the meeting to share the screen?
Yes.
Let me just yes.
There you go. Oops.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, be able to see from here. So,
Okay. There it is.
we can see your screen.
So most of you are familiar, or all of you are familiar with the future land use map changes and the changes to the categories, and it's a significant departure from what you have. So that's one thing that needs some major updating plan. Also, there's the designation program. The former designation program is now the community investment program. So we need to address those changes, and Tier 1B, where you opt in to be exempt from Act 250 review for residential. For the transportation plan, I think you only need some minor updates to the transportation plan. It's good. You could, for example, talk about funding sources for those projects. I'm sure the projects that you're interested in pursuing related to transportation have probably changed in the last 7 years since the last plan. So it'd be good to look at that as well. The utilities and facilities plan, I noticed in one spot where it says that Windsor doesn't anticipate growth, and then in another spot it talks about how growth is really needed to because you have so much excess capacity in the sewer and water systems, so it would help make that more financially sustainable. So it'd be good to address that, and then utilities are also critical for housing development. So to the extent that there's overlap there with the housing needs, would be good to address that as well. I saw several references to a capital budget program, but I haven't seen the actual capital budget program, so I would love to take a look at that. Again, talking specifically about the needs, the cost, and the financing would be helpful, at least in a general sense, not down to the penny or anything like that. Throughout the document, there's a lot of references to plans, other plans. It'd be great to be able to click on those and open them up. Repeat. I think for the natural, scenic, and historic resources, that one's pretty good as well, pretty compliant. Minor updates. You mentioned the tactical basin plan. It would be good to look at some of the priorities that were identified in the tactical basin plan and maybe mirror that in the town plan or refer to that. Education plan also. There will be statistics that need to be updated, and I was more worried about the child care section of the education chapter. The state planning goals want more specific information about child care in terms of financing, infrastructure, business assistance, and workforce development. So good to consider those things as well. We did say that your implementation plan needs a major update. There's just been so much change, and some of the recommendations were fairly broad, so updating those to reflect your new situation and making sure they're specific enough so that they can actually be accomplished, and you'll you know who's going to do what. the relationship to towns and the region. Again, a lot of changes with Act 181, the new categories, the new maps, and Mark's new regional plan. So those will all need to be looked at probably more towards the end of this process than the beginning. I mean, Mark's plan isn't even adopted yet, so I would put that more towards the end. The energy plan was compliant at the time that it was created, but a lot of things have changed, including the state targets, which are roughly half what they were when your original plan was written. Renewable energy generation targets. But we have an updated energy plan on Mark's website, and there are town profiles for each of the 10 towns in the region, and those can be used to help update your energy chapter. That was another one that was flagged as needing a May date. Thank you. And my one question I had was whether you want to incorporate the energy plan into the town plan itself. Right now, it's an appendix. It kind of seems like maybe an afterthought and not carrying equal weight with the other chapters. But if you prefer it that way, that's up to you. Another major update, of course, is housing. I mean, that's can't travel in the news without hearing about the need for housing, new housing efforts, housing funding sources, and of course, the regional plan was given a regional housing target, and then charged with breaking that out by municipality. When we submitted our draft regional plan, the Land Use Review Board came back to us. One of their comments was, because they had given us a range and we had stuck with their range. And they said, well, you should really pick one. Or pick a middle point. And we felt like the targets they had provided were a pretty big stretch. So Mark is going with the low end of the range. So hopefully that's good news. There are some things missing because Act 181 changed the requirements in addition to the targets. They're looking for specific actions that will help address the housing needs of low and moderate income residents. There's some more specifics on talking about options like modular housing. They want you to address seasonal housing, and I didn't see that in the plan. You're not required to address short-term rentals, but they're a big issue for a lot of towns. So I just flagged that as a question more like, is that an issue in Windsor? And would you like to address that? And then, of course, you probably heard of CHIP, new funding source, Vermont Housing Improvement Program is another funding source, 802 Homes, Let's Build Homes. There's a lot of things out there to assist with housing efforts. Economic development, I really liked your economic development chapter. I do think it needs some updating, not really for statutory reasons, or because of everything that's been going on since this plan was originally written. I mean, the pandemic, the artificial intelligence, data centers, there's just so much that affects employment and the economy. So I threw that out there as something that you might want to consider in a survey. Some towns are concerned about data centers. That would be a sort of one possible broad question. Maybe you want a data center. You've got the land there where Whittier and Combs used to be. And I don't know, just something to think about, or maybe ask about. And then the flood resilience chapter, you probably know the state's going to take over river corridor regulations. Your plan currently had suggested that you consider adopting river corridor regulations. I think shortly after you complete this plan is when they're going to take over jurisdiction over river corridors. So, they also require towns to adopt the state flood hazard standards. And there's some other changes. And that this for the flood hazard section was also flagged as needing major updates. Those were my primary observations. There's also a new state planning goal on environmental benefits and burdens. So, Mark just addressed this in our plan. Ellen was very involved with that. You may want to say something about that, but that would be a new requirement that you could meet with a new section, or you can also adopt the regional plan by reference for some of these elements. If you want to go to this one. Those are my observations in a nutshell about the plan. And so for the update, I looked at what we said we would do in our municipal planning grant and in our proposal to you all. And this basically follows that with some detail here and there. Talk about the specific areas that I already mentioned where major updates are needed, and then some other ones that were not mentioned in the municipal planning grant. But for example, with the LURB, when the LURB came to evaluate our draft regional plan, they visited the correctional facility site, and there's quite a bit of discussion about that. Not sure if you want to maybe have a survey question on that, what people's interest. I know you've discussed it in the past, but we get to a point where you are comfortable with what you want to recommend as far as that goes. And I mentioned utility, childcare, justice. And I started to do a timeline. I actually worked backwards, so most of the details at the end because I wanted to, your plan expires in November 2027. State legislation changed the expiration deadline for all town plans that expire this year or next year, so they now expire on December 31st, 2027. So you've got about 6 more weeks than you would have had otherwise. So I worked back from there to make sure that you know when you have to have your first public hearing, when you have to get it to the select, so they at least have time to adopt it. Once you give it to them, it's out of your hands, whether they adopt it within that time frame or not. At least they would have. And in the middle, there's a lot of, I put the dates, like your local meeting dates are, and I want to hear from you all about your hopes and your preferences for priorities. I did talk about doing a survey, coming up with a public outreach plan, including a survey, and wanted your thoughts on that. It's on the Windsor Town Plan update. It's task number 2. This includes things that we talk about doing in the municipal planning grant and or in our proposal to you. So now I want to hear from you. I got my pen and I'm ready to cross things out and add things in. And
Thanks for going through all of this. This is very helpful. I think what we have to decide is I know it's, I think you guys are going to give us some direction and maybe propose give you this suggestion. You can come back with us with some more specifics, but you know, we can't tackle this thing. It's just a big piece that needs to really be sliced up.
Right.
The question is, does the commission want to slice it up first by saying what points need the least amount of work? Let's review those, set them aside. They're done, they're finished, we don't need to deal with that. Look at the rest of it and say, there's some pieces here that are kind of technical side. They're not really, you know, a lot of things that are going to be, that the public would probably, we even survey for. It's, you know, like the utilities and the infrastructure and some of the things, municipal things and all of that. Those pieces don't really, you know, that stuff that is as it is, and we just need to discuss that and say where we go from there, and probably we have more involvement for Trevor with that, saying as the town manager, okay, you know, we're supposed to have this the investment plan that was there. We had a fund that was established, but I don't think any actual program came up. We knew what's needed, what needs to be done, and being part of the budget committee, we would discuss those things, but there wasn't any formalized document or anything like that. And the town plan made it sound like that was the intent, is to have something formal. Maybe we formalize that, or we just say that we're going to continue to have that fund and contribute to it every year. They cover unseen expenses, cover things like a new fire truck. We're working on that and other stuff. And that's kind of the middle ground side of stuff. And then there's going to be things that I look at. What is the day-to-day things for the people who live in Windsor? And that's the stuff that we need the public's input on. It was suggested by Jason that we involve some of the other organizations, groups, and committees in the town, be a part of it. There's all, like when it comes to development, Rick is here. Have a member of it on the board. So it would be a big part of it, but there, you know, we also have Historic Windsor, we have other groups that should be looking at those types of things. So I think if we break this up into pieces and say, okay, here's a piece where we need the involvement of these groups to really contribute to this specific part of the plan, so that their contributions actually generate something that's useful to us, that can be incorporated directly to people. Sort of like subcommittees or subgroups is kind of the way I've been thinking about it. I don't know what you guys say now. And go after this thing.
Well, it's eating an elephant, right? One chunk at a time.
One bite at a time.
Yeah, as far as I think we should ask for specific feedback from groups whose subject areas are touched upon here, especially because, you know, what do we know about recreation specifically? We reach out to the Paradise Park Committee and we have a center recreation committee.
We have a rec
Yeah.
department.
So we can reach out to them. It's always better to ask people specific questions for feedback rather than saying, here's a 75-page document. What do you think? That's just a wide open thing. It's like, what do you think about the recreation chapter? What specific change redlining for us? You know, give us some specific things you'd like to see. So for that's type of thing that's not necessarily in our wheelhouse, I really would appreciate that.
Okay.
Help share the love too.
Well, that's my thought. I mean, there's a lot to be done here, and apparently there's 4 duties here in the commission that can do whatever they can do around their daily lives and jobs. So the expectations are very, you know, too much for us to be able to handle all of that. Plus, we have Mark, which the expectations for him are, you know, within the boundaries of the grant as far as how much time they can give us. And we need their hours focused on things that are productive to actually finish product. You know, we should be the ones going out and doing surveys. We should be the ones taking care of some of those things. And we need to, you know, come down the line and figure out when and how we're going to put those pieces together. So I think the next part is how do we what's our first bites? If you guys agree with saying let's take things that need the least amount of work And we focus on that in the next couple of meetings and say, let's get that done. In the meantime, I'll start thinking about our schedules and when if we're going to go out and do a survey in the public and we're going to man a table with price chopper or something when that makes sense for us to be there. I'd like to do the surveys in a way that's going to be, we'd have some paper ones, but I prefer to have like a business card kind of thing or even something right there on the QR code. They walk up and they hit up their cell phone and take the survey. And kind of make it as simple as possible. And for those who really don't want to do it that way, then we have paper forms that they can use too. That means it's got to get the information in paper. So we can avoid that as much as possible. It'd be helpful. But I think that's our first things to be concerned about. We have a limited time window we're going to be able to be in the public just from the weather side of things. So
getting a survey together fairly soon would be high priority. So that we can be in front of Price Chopper comfortably.
well, I think we take it bites at a time, right? So we would have one time we'll go out Price Chopper and we'll have a survey that's focused on very specific subjects in the town plan. I think the problem with having a huge survey trying to cover everything is it's ungainly, and it'd be better for us, if we can, at the next meeting, to at least have a clue as to what we should be surveying first, and that would come from saying that, okay, we're taking the easy stuff that you're going to come back. Here's all the things that just need some minor tweaking. This is what we tweak. What do you think? Does this work? Like the pieces of being able to pull stuff from the regional plan and all those different aspects of the pieces that are boilerplate, so to speak. Because we've already done the hard writing part and it's all still okay in the 2019 plan. Then the next question is which one do we want to tackle next? And that would be the survey. What are we going to say that we're going to need the public input on before we start jumping into it? And we should determine that, I think, by the next meeting to figure out what that's going to be, because then that would give us another couple of weeks to A, set a date, and B, come up with a list of questions that we're and how we want to put it together so that we can just go out and start doing it.
And how do you envision, would you like Mark? I mean, do you want to brainstorm questions and then go from there, or?
From the survey side?
Right, for the
I think it's going to depend on which aspect of the town plan we're going to focus on next.
Right. So you're thinking maybe you would do multiple mini surveys?
Yes.
Okay.
I think a big one that's not that productive because people will give you good answers if there's not a lot there and you're asking very neutral, good questions. Because surveys can be done in a way that guide people to a specific response, and we have to be careful about that. So we want to leave it, as the questions are going to be important depending on of what we're surveying. So the next thing that we're looking at is going to be where are we going to go next as the highest priority. I'm thinking the biggest animal might be the housing to start with as our first big process, or do we want to do something else and learn from that before we buy it off housing? I mean, that's kind of a trade-off.
To me, the biggest thing, period, is land use. And that's the one that really has legal weight. It's the most important. I don't know if you should start with that either, but maybe it's something we should revisit multiple times.
I think we definitely need to learn some smaller pieces before we tackle that. Because then we'll have a better idea how to survey that. This kind of process is you put something out there and you're expecting a certain kind of response back, and what happens, the public spits back something you completely didn't expect because you realize, oh, well, we actually didn't do this the best way we could. So we should hold back the things that are critical to where we have the experience and the knowledge and find out, does it work? Trying to do it at Price Chopper? Do we need to go someplace else? There's a lot of little pieces I think we're going to have to figure out. The select board's been successful down there. So when they've done their little surveys,
How many of these mini surveys are you thinking you want us to do?
I'm thinking, I don't have the exact answer. I know we need to do one on the land use side, sure. I think we need to do one on the housing side. Yes, economic development would be one. No, I don't know that we need much other than from the survey side. I mean, we're still going to have public input and things, but I mean, from the survey side,
I guess I'm also just to support that question. Like, when are you looking to have this survey done by, right? To like set us on our way, right? If we're doing it at 3.
we looking at it.
But
I don't know. It's a we, not a me. I'm not telling you guys. I think that's what I said for you. But it's more like that's what we have to figure out. That's what we need to nail down. How many are we going to do? What are they going to be for? Which ones do we do first, second, or third? What dates can we do them on?
I mean, you can survey people inside. You can go to like basketball games, but I just didn't know. Are we trying to like have this done by the end of this year? That's what I'm getting at. You don't just have to be outside in a price chopper parking.
No, I think that all our park projects. I mean, anywhere where people are gathering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, concerts on the Common on Wednesdays. Every time we've got a group of people who live in town that are here, and they're actively doing something, and we're out and about. It should be, that's what I'm thinking, like a business card kind of thing that we're all carrying around. And some of the groups and organizations that hopefully we can get to help us, but they'll be doing it too. And all I have to do is just say, scan this. Here's the card for this survey we're doing now. When we're ready to do the next one, it's a new QR code. Scan this one. Oh, you didn't do the first one? Scan that one too. And but yeah, once we start the process, it's not just one day during a window of hours. I bring up Price Chopper because there's obviously most of the people in town goes in there. But people will start telling other people about it, and the QR codes will be on the website. There'll be multiple ways to get to them to do the surveys.
Yeah, no, that'll make sense. I'm just worried about if we're doing like 3, 4 months, like just not going from one to the next, right? You're going to want to have them surveyed on one for a period of time, and then we move to the next. I'm just thinking in terms of time, right? Like how long will be doing outreach for one thing and then move to the next? So some of it's going to be like walking and chewing gum at the same time. That's what I'm getting at.
Right. And, I don't know that we need to have the risk. And this is something we need to kind of, again, figure out. The question is if we break it up in certain parts, some people may not mind coming in. And if we had the surveys ready a few months down the line and miss the others going on the website doing, if there was 4 of them, I don't even know we need that. Just as an example, all 4 would be there and they can click and just go and do the 4 by topic. It's kind of the vision for it. And I think the surveys stay ongoing until we get maybe close to finalized stuff. And we will use the preliminary data to shape what we're writing at the point that we're at. If we start to see any data points changing at that point in time, it's time to look at it and consider it again, saying maybe we're off. But initially you usually get a pretty good gist of where it's heading fairly quickly. These things.
So I said this before when we were kind of formulating our MPG application, but I don't really believe in doing surveys just for the sake of surveys. I mean, I think we should have specific information that we're looking to solicit, because if you just ask people in the abstract, like, do you want safe, clean, and affordable housing for everyone? Like, yeah. Do you want clean air and water and then nice parks for everyone? Yeah, what should do? Like, they have to be very targeted. Like one thing that like pops into mind with like transportation, where I think you would actually get some useful information. I mean, if we were to work with Mover for a new bus route, where would you like it to go to from? We would actually get some meaty information from that, basically. So I don't know about having 4 mini surveys, and I also think it's extremely difficult to get people to respond to those. So even if you're handing out cards, they take a card and they can go online or return it in the mail or whatever. It's really hard to get substantive, but also just a good sample size of people, no matter what you do. So I'm more into the public forums and having like some deeper engagement, even if it's with fewer people overall, than just doing a bunch of surveys just to try to gather it, because we're not going to get that much data. We're not going to get a statistically significant amount of data, no matter what.
Okay.
I'll start from a different aspect. I'm new here, so when I look at this town plan of 2019, I think it's spot on. It's an excellent document. Full marks to Robert Hayden, Marv, this is a class and lands. Very well written document. And I like the idea of these goals, policies, and recommendations. I don't know if that's a standard for the state or that's what the team came up with. But for the recommendations, it's stopped. As in, I think I wrote it down, it says utilize, encourage, review, develop, improve. It doesn't say we will have 10 new houses downtown. We will have 4 new businesses in Arsons Park. This is soft. So my big question is, how do we measure that? Or how can we measure the success of the last plan? And I'll say if we could measure the success of it, that would be where I'd start with the survey. An example on the economic development, you said it's, I've forgotten what you mentioned, it was good, strong, was your comment. I think it's very strong for 2019. Maybe it's no good for today.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of work, for me, there's a lot of work to do with economic development, not just say it's well written and we'll just tweak it. But in that, where it's got a table on the jobs, establishments and employment from 2010 to 2017. It'd be great if we could update that. That would be a way of measuring that document, because the biggest, on the 2017, biggest employers is government and health. And so that's, for me, that's an overhead. That's what we pay taxes for, to provide that. We're not creating jobs as far as engineers or professional people that are not in those 2 sectors. People have to go out and make a job. To me, that creates jobs. If you're building, there was some advert last night on La Valley building supplies, and they had they were doing preformatted houses, prefabricated houses, sorry, where you just they built it in sections and then they'll take it down, so it's less people needed.
Right.
A bit more people needed in the factory and potentially more jobs. So I would look at how is it successful or not successful? How can we measure the last plan? Well, for the plan we're going to do, I'd like to see a way of measuring it. Was it just a nice document that went into the filing cabinet, or was it a living document that we looked at every say quarter or something, and sort of tweaked it, or maybe not formally, but tweaked always? And when coming from here, on the bicycle track, so I don't have to read through it, but it was, for access, improved connection between downtown and Arsons Park. So yeah, it was and they came up with sort of improve that access, river walk, path, bicycle route, or other. What a great way of starting that conversation in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say a way of measuring that point, what happened to it? Did we start and realize, no, it's too much effort, it costs too much money? I don't know. So things like that, great initiatives in that last plan. And a lot of them we can carry over, I think. But we've got to, I don't know, we can get some success and get it working. Otherwise, it'll just be another.
You're saying you'd like to see some accountability.
Yeah, well, I'm measuring it, not necessarily by person, but say, right, on the recommended
accountability to a town plan, to
Yeah,
its goals.
exactly.
Yeah.
Goals, so that we make the goal, did we not make the goal, we didn't make the goal, why, what do we do to change that?
The goals ought to be as specific as possible. With
Yeah.
Like what, how, why, and how. If we're assigning X. We would like to see X do Y to accomplish this during this town plan cycle. Here's what we can do to further this. it is ultimately a visioning document. It's really just setting a vision for the town, and none of these are binding, obviously, but the more specific you can be about delegating things within the town plan and having those measurables and steps that you can take, the better.
The one thing that is binding though are the maps.
Clearly, it's very important.
Future land use is the biggest, stickiest, and most difficult part. It's like, well, probably doing a lot of that, a lot of snow outside. Because it's going to, that's going to take a lot of effort. The reason by the way, go back between your version of let's do a lot of forums and my version of let's do a lot of polls and surveys. We need both. But the problem,
We
the
need
problem with both
we
sides,
need to do a block of forums.
No.
I'll say.
forums are, they're usually a set specific date and time and
Yep.
hours that people's lifestyles, for the most part, usually don't coordinate with.
Yep.
And so how do you get the opinions of the people who can't come? And I think that's what I'm trying to accomplish with the polls and the surveys. Just in a nutshell, I don't care how many we do. I think we just need to feel when we're done that the public themselves had some say. And forums are very difficult for the public to do that in.
You know, what do you think about, and I don't know what the logistics are for mailing a postcard to everyone in town?
We actually talked about doing that. Yeah.
And it can be just basically, we're updating the town plan. This is the town plan website link.
Mhm.
There will be surveys on the link that we'd like you to participate in. The Planning Commission meets on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. We would welcome you to come and provide input. Just something real small that could be
Sure.
sent out economically to the entire town near the beginning, so everyone's aware of what's
Yeah.
happening.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about part of the budget when we were doing the grant plan. And it's in there, but it's not in there as a specific line item, but the marketing side of it was to include reaching out using a mailer of some sort. We had originally also discussed that possibly we would do that to introduce the first survey. Some kind of action item in it would be good too. So that it gives a time, date, deadline or something there so the public, when they get the postcard, it's like, well, this is nice. What am I supposed to do with it? Oh,
Right.
do this.
Yeah.
Would be kind of the idea of it.
You could start with a fairly broad survey, and then if you find as you're going along that specific issues are popping up and you really want more detailed feedback on that particular
Yeah, I mean, it's a strategy to do that. Holly spent some time and put together a very long list of a lot of things that encompasses what feedback could be done from the survey. I have it here somewhere, but it was like 4 or 5 pages long of questions. The problem that I felt at the time is that it's too much for people to go through and it's not directed enough. You know, when you do a survey, it's fairly limited. You're focusing their mindset on that specific topic, and I think they give more thought and better answers that way.
Right.
But this is all what we're trying to suss out. I mean, what do we need? I don't know. That's the whole point. We don't know what we need
Right.
until we know what we need.
Right.
We're not going to get forward with this thing.
Yeah, probably keeping it to say 15 or 20 questions that take someone 5 minutes, not more than 10
Absolutely.
minutes for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep, and they could be a multiple choice type of thing. We should also have on every survey, there should be a place for people to put in any kind of comments and discussion that they want. To say whatever they want to say, and sometimes the survey questions may be appropriate that there isn't a guided response. And it's like, tell us what you think about a specific thing. I think all those tools should be put in there. Check boxes are nice because they go quick, but I find that that's where you don't get good information a lot of times. People just, check. Yeah, I did it.
It should definitely be an open response. I don't know how hard this is logistically, but I am a fan of like the GIS maps where you can like drop a pin and put a comment on a specific location. I don't know how hard that is or expensive or time consuming it is for Mark to potentially
Yeah.
do that. But
we tried that with one of
Yeah.
our maps, and it didn't work out very well. It is pretty challenging to try to make that work.
I know what you're saying. It's a great idea. I just don't think we're
Sure.
we're close, but we're not quite there for that type of map.
I'd definitely like to do it at a public forum to have a printed map and have people be able to drop things on it.
Sure.
That leads stakeholders and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think we've got to zoom in on where we need input.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's why I was saying take the first part is taking the pieces that we know are pieces that are we just need to update to take care of it. The town plan covers fairly well, and like the municipal portions and things like that, and just knock them out, get them out of the way. The other thought is to save that for the end, but I'd like to at least have some pieces that we feel counter some stuff. It's like, okay, we got these parts done, and if we've discovered this thing, the information we need to finish it, we can find that now and work our way through. So when we tackle the harder parts, we have some experience with the process. We're coming back saying, here's our recommendations, here's what you have, here's the recommendations. Let's do a discussion and then follow up, change, and then finalize. That makes sense.
I mean, two of the chapters that I flagged as probably not needing major updates for transit and natural, scenic, and historic resources.
Yeah. You want to tackle that at next meeting then? Will you be ready for us to do that by then? Is that reasonable?
You have draft updates.
For those two.
Let's start with one.
R1.
Shouldn't all the chapters actually reflect the overall vision? Don't you think we should first actually agree on a vision and then see how?
I look at the vision as the very last thing you do. Because when we get the information back from everybody and we start working on it, a vision should, if we do this right, develop on its own. Say, this is what we found out, this is what we've written, this is what we put together.
We're gonna do it on the opposite way. We start to edit the text and then look how it will result a vision.
But the town plan, currently we have a vision that was put in 2019 that were goals. And the question is do we want to, it could create a vision in the beginning, but that would be us establishing the vision. Not the public, not the groups, no consultant from anybody else. We're going to say, this is what we think the vision should be.
Well,
I think that's backwards. I think when you're done, here's the information, here's the plan, this is what we found out. From this, it says the vision should be. And that's when you write the vision statement. It's at the end of it.
I see what you're both saying, because I think Hallie's saying that a lot of these chapters really do overlap each other. So having like a more holistic starting point does kind of make sense. But yeah, I also know what you're saying, where we don't really know what the overarching vision is until we get some actual information and feedback. I don't think starting with the chapters that we think are going to be a lighter lift necessarily means we can't revisit them after we've gotten more feedback.
Oh, absolutely.
And incorporate whatever we hear and make changes, but I do think it would be smart to kind of try to knock those ones out early and get our feet wet.
Exactly.
Because a lot of these are only going to be basically life cycle upgrades. Talking about stuff that is new since the last one.
Right.
Like the micro cooper and the new arm down at the rail yard.
Yep.
That type of stuff. But yeah, what are you saying, Sarah?
Safety. Having a bit of a vision helps. So whether we use last year's one and have that as a draft and we go through everything and then the final we ink in the vision. But in that example, we want to say, or would we want to say we want to be the data center of the world in Windsor, kind of it's a vision. But maybe when we would go through all the chapters with the section, you kind of realize,
That's my point.
that's not it.
That's it. So,
We can create a working framework, I think, and then have people react to it. It's always easier to get the public and
Yes.
to react to something than it is to just give them an open-ended prompt too, so that it's probably smart to do.
But until we actually get into the nitty-gritty, it's, again, doing the simple ones first, until we get our elbows up to our elbows in this thing, I don't even see how we could understand the process of the mission yet. I mean, it's like when we start working on these pieces, we're going to understand, you know, the whole process of what we're doing. And at that point, we'll have a better clue as to what we should be doing. I don't want to confuse not having a vision with not having a direction. I think the direction is going to be really important. We have a specific goal that we're going to set to accomplish what we're doing. But I think, like I said, the 2019 town plan, I don't think this is real far off from where we're probably going to land anyway. There are a lot of things that they discussed that were happening in 2019 are happening now, but they need to be updated. Your example, there's data centers that are being built in places. Right now, there's companies desperately coming to Vermont to do that. So, and there are some towns that have approved them and then unapproved them for good reasons, bad reasons, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. The point is, it didn't exist in 2019. Is the point. And so right now, what we're trying to figure out is from this point forward, the next 8 years, what's going to come along that we should be taking advantage of, and what's here now that we should be taking advantage of. And so, me, that's kind of the guiding side of the vision itself. It's like, where are we? Where do we want to go? And I think that needs public input.
Helen and I were talking earlier about updating your data, looking at trends in your data, and having a public meeting once that's available.
Sure.
And getting feedback, you know, on any trends that might have emerged that might have changed since last time. I'm not available on the September 10th, so we thought, you know, it was something that maybe Kellen could facilitate on September 10th. I think, you know, jump in, Kellen, but I thought you could be ready to do that then.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Happy to lead that. We just did something similar over in Chester with their town plan, renewal, redevelopment, whatever, as a part of their process, and I think it added a lot of good insight to the process and kind of the process of guiding the town forward. I think that there were a lot of surprising trends that folks captured, and it helped the conversation a lot. So would love to do that with Windsor as well.
Very helpful too. I agree. I think that kind of makes a lot. If we can do it, then that'd be great.
I mean, even with the simpler chapters, like let's just say the historic one, but very good thing. But you know, if you do want to get input from historic Windsor or maybe you know, that might not be something that we can turn around in 2 weeks because we've got to reach out to them.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't think we would be those. You're right. When we're thinking of tackling that one, that might be a good time for us. Maybe be one of the early ones that we do, but we certainly let them know. I mean, I think one of the tasks that we need to finalize is that it's. I guess we don't need a specific list. We came up with a fairly decent one in our last meeting. In fact, I had it on that seat of organizations in town that we should be working with. And I think the first thing that we need to do, which is kind of part of what's already there in this for the July 23rd meeting, is that the outreach, we should be sending something to all of these groups and organizations, letting them know we're starting on the town plan, this is what's happening, your input will be coming up, and then and make them aware of the specific portions of the plan that they should be taking a look at, and have them try to come and attend those meetings that are going to be discussing those pieces. So, but if we don't let them know we're doing it, it's going to go nowhere. So I think that has to happen fairly soon too. Is to come up with that list and just send out just a simple email, just saying, hey, here's what's up. And take a look at the existing town plan. There are areas that meet your concerns, then we'd like to have your feedback when we're going to discuss that specific portion.
So we can maybe
Yeah.
we'll reach out to and have how and when to reach out to them and
Persons.
I think if we had time, but we had like the welcome centre and stay every Monday for 2 months, saying that we can all take it turns, and we present one of these plans, like the education plan, and it's just that's all it's discussed for 1 hour, one evening, or some other time, and it goes back on the old plan, how the plan is evolving, the draft, and get feedback. So that'd be one way of sort of
That's kind of what I'm saying too. Yes, that's how we would approach it. What I was saying is that we would have Mark do their thing between updating the data and looking at each piece of the plan, and then we would do like you're saying. We'd go to the specific portion of it and kind of invite the public in to say that, okay, just like we did with the zoning, where we had, the edited copies, and here's what it used to be, and here's what it is now. We could approach it that way too. So the public had a chance to see side-by-side comparisons with markup on it, like the tracking.
Am I following this right? You want to have, there are 15 chapters, you want to have 15 meetings?
Well, or you have 2 meetings in an evening. But just to present exactly the way you summarized it. I mean, we have to have 5 of us, say, it could be, let's say, 2 to present it, or with Mark as well. And so that people say, right, on this Monday, it's education plan and the implementation plan as an example, and go through the education plan. So we already have a draft, or we've gone to a certain gate to the development of the update.
I think this
is overkill. I'm sorry, that's too much.
I think we're overly too. I think for some of them, the land use portion, that makes sense, that we really focus on that, but forum or public meeting. But I think some of the smaller pieces, if you wanted to do that, I think it's a great idea, and I think we should. I mean, we're going to have an overall public meeting at the end, but if we wanted to do something preliminary just to get feedback to say, whoa, is there a red flag here we're missing? We could certainly do that, but I think we're going to be doing that here. That's the whole thing. This is what's going to happen in our meetings. And I would encourage that we have people come here when we tackle those pieces and give their input. That's why we're here. Because I think doing the other side of it is, first off, we're not going to be writing each segment and weekly meetings. We'd be lucky to have 1 or 2. But right now, we're looking at 1 for our next meeting in 2 weeks.
I'm just saying, as we're spending time standing outside the price chopper,
Yeah.
trying to get someone's attention.
Yeah.
That may be very interested in historic resources, but not in education.
Right.
Their kids are bloody flown at roost. And so having it somehow publicised that we're going to talk about education for between 6 and 6:30, and then another one on 6:30 to 7. I don't know. It just puts all that effort and surveys, and there's surveys who's going to respond. It depends if you've got to get the right who they're going to and who's going to have the interest and how their questions are worked and how you take that feedback. A lot of effort goes into putting the survey together, get somebody to want to do it. Every time I go to an depot, I get asked to have a survey. Right. Because it's so I don't know. It's not it. It may be a big overkill. I've never done this before. But I'm just thinking, trying to get to the person who has interest, or people that have interest in responding. It's one way that we publicize it somehow. If you want to talk about education plan, town plan for the next 8 years, how's this going to affect your kids? Have an info and give them an opportunity to come in.
Well, I think one of the ways we could do this is we can utilize the technical abilities that are going to be built into the website. And the website, the way I look at it is we're going to have each one of these segments of the town plan would be like a post page of the website. And what the post page allows you to do is underneath, the people who visit the website can put comments right there, right on the page, exactly what they're reading. And we can have, this is what it was, this is what it is. What do you think? And that's how the website, and I'm looking at it as being the tool for that, going back to, again, driving people in the direction to get there. And I think Harry's right, though. It's very, very difficult to get people to do that. But when it comes to certain pieces of the plan, the energy portion, there may be some people are passionate about that. Some are passionate about what are we going to do down by the river area and how's that going to be affected by the state and the new, takeover from the zoning from that side to, the prison property to whatever it might be. We're going to have different segments. They're going to elicit different response.
I see what you're saying. I think my preference would be like 2 to 3 max public forums for the whole plan. And I certainly don't think we need to have people looking at red lines of what obviously it's open to the public that we're going to, post them in our box and stuff, but so people can look at them if they're that interested. But I don't think having people laser in on individual sentences is really going to be super helpful.
Right.
Like if we get people who are, the thing about having many meetings for each chapter as well is that it relies on that person who's really interested in education or whatever being available at that specific time. So it suffers from that, but it's more diffuse. So it's even harder to get people to show up. So meeting people where they're at, hopefully at bigger events and having public forums that are well publicized, and we just try to cast as wide a net as possible and hopefully have them at different venues and at different times. You can even have kind of informal forums, like we can say whatever, you or Trevor or whoever is going to be at Boston Dreams at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday to catch that demographic or whatever, and we'll do a weeknight and a weekend day or something. You know what I mean?
Silo and Friday nights. Michael's playing tomorrow night, so
There you go. We'll be his opener. Come talk about the town plan. But yeah, I think fewer and better and deeper public forums and interactive, if possible, maps and being able to talk to all of us, talk to Allie, talk to Martha.
I got an idea. Martha, you're the one who does this all the time. So let me ask you this. What are we kind of just really sharking up, going through minutiae we don't need to? This is best for us to just
There's not a lot of process and not much product at the moment.
That's right. So, but we do need to have the process figured out. But what is normal when you guys both put together town plans? So what are we really looking at here? What should we be focusing on?
There's different approaches. It really does vary somewhat by town, but given a shortish timeline, there's probably not enough time to do all of these things. They're all great ideas, but I guess I'm with Harry on choosing having a few, 2 or 3 public forums, having a survey sooner rather than later, getting information out to direct people to the website so that they can interact that way and know what's going on that way. Definitely putting, of course, drafts up on the website. I think, again, I'm with Harry that if you start asking for, it's too many cooks in the kitchen, I think, to get people to, if you're trying to go through and you've got 20 comments and those comments might be in conflict with each other. And then, how do you respond to that? It just could make it very cumbersome, time-consuming, difficult. So, all in favor of inviting the public and incorporating public comments through public forums and surveys and stuff. I just getting into the nitty-gritty of actually writing is
So focusing on what was and now what is really isn't necessarily something that we need to think about. I mean, the zoning obviously did, but for this, it's like, well, we're writing something new anyway, so.
But it wasn't this the approach from the beginning? Like, I remember we had this document last year that we want to look into our current conditions, then what's the objectives that we want to bring up, how we're improving this current condition, and what are our policies that we're incorporating. I remember I shared this document like last year, and each chapter should have 5 main sections: the current condition, the vision and objectives, policy and action framework, and then how this is represented in maps, or how we're visualizing that, and how it's aligning with the state and the regional condition. I think, all right, the public input is very important, but it's just to guide the town plan in a certain way. It's not the main focus, because at the end, the town plan is actually a requirement by the state. And if we don't have a town plan, we cannot apply for grants, and we have to fit to what exactly the statutes require. We should align each chapter with the related statutes. This is our main focus. And then how this is reflected on a local or the public input. So it's affected, okay, by the public, what we want, what issues we have, how we're solving these issues. But at the end, we have to comply with the statutes, and each chapter should be guided with each statute. You have a checklist at SMART of what the town plan should have and what should cover, and they think that should actually guide how to improve the town plan.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just representative democracy, right? Like point commission, public engagement is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. Like
Yeah.
we want to gather input from the public, hear what everyone's shared vision is, and funnel it into writing the document. No one wants to read the document. Some people here don't want to read the document. The select board certainly doesn't want to read it. Right? What people want to do is come, maybe if we have food and we're at an event that's already happening, they want to come to the forum and say, I think we should have a racetrack in Windsor. That would be cool. Sure. And we're like, cool, thanks for your input. And we come back here and we have our list of comments and we talk about it. And if there's somewhere to integrate that and we talk about it that's actually in the interest of the town, then we put it together. And if the select board likes what we do, then they approve it. But yeah, it is ultimately very paint by numbers. I mean, Mark has their rubric that we've kind of shared with us now. And if they don't approve us, then we're not eligible for MPGs in the future, or we're not eligible for certain other grants and tax credits. And the public input really is just to help us fill in the blanks within those guardrails. The rubric is you have to talk about X, Y, Z, and so on.
Exactly.
The specifics can be filled in by the shared vision, basically.
Public input is only to localize our town plan,
right.
but we already have the outlines.
Right. We have to talk about housing. We have to set housing targets. We have to, in the plan, at least talk about how we're going to get enough safe, affordable housing for everyone, and have some goals to forward that. So if we get feedback from the public that's like, I don't want to see any new housing or whatever, that's off the table, basically. I mean, we basically are being told we have to allow new housing, and that's fine, or promote new housing. Because this is not, again, a legal document. It's really just an amazing aspirational document. But in terms of the feedback of where people would like to see that, what type of housing, who needs to be served by this housing. That's where the public input is valuable. So, yeah, fewer and better forums for public input is my message.
So we should narrow it down, you're saying, to stuff that's
Surveys are
specifically.
great because they want to sure that's an option for people who can't make any of the forms set
Right.
or whatever. So yeah, we need to have both and the website. But let's just narrow our focus is all.
So I've been kind of overthinking it tonight. So basically, it's almost like what we did with the zoning. We have a certain area that the state has mandated that we have to do the way the state wants us to do it. And then whatever spots that are left for us to have some input, we can. For instance, going back to James's point, do we want data centers or not? I mean, that's something we can determine, but the state can't tell us you have to have them.
Yep.
So we can certainly do that, and we can address, I think probably the public is going to have more concern about if we were going to even include anything about the present property into the plan, and jump on a third rail, that we would need public input about that. I mean, it's kind of a determined thing about the regional plan where it is now. The state's not doing anything with it. And we don't know. Me, probably putting that third wheel in the town plan is that we can't see the future. We have no idea if the state let it go, what it would be like, whether it be the 10, 12 acres that's in the regional plan, or it would be something else. So it's sort of like that might be best left to very general, just saying at any point in time that it became available, that the town plan should say that we should do something to get the public involved in the decision of what could be done there, and just let it go.
Let's say to your point with that, as an example, fell into one of these sections,
That would be land use.
It'd be in land use, yeah.
land use. I'm thinking of if you had jobs there, education there, interpretation, let's say once you had an idea where it would fit, then we could put it in. But I agree with you, shouldn't put it in this.
We have no
It's
idea.
trusts.
We have no idea what we can do with it, and we have no idea how much of the land, if the state turned it over, how much of the land the state would even turn over. So it's kind of hard for us to say anything about that. We did have that discussion of a nature center there at one point in time. There's a lot of wonderful things that could be envisioned there, but is that something really we should be looking at now? Because it's not part of our practicality, and this town plan's good for 8 years, and we would already have to be in the process of it being turned over before it really actually landed in our hands during the lifetime of that town plan. And more than likely, because I can't see anything moving that fast anyhow. It'd take at least 5 years or more to just suss out all the problems that are there before we'd even want it on our rolls again. So, but I think it's mentioned.
That's a very, the prison's office is the most controversial thing in town. But that's where the public input is really valuable, and that's where the shared vision is expressed. And honestly, getting anyone to agree on anything for that would be hard. But maybe if there's something that's a red line for most people, like we want it to be a prison again. That could be a policy that we have in the land use checks.
Yes.
And that theoretically should be legally binding if there were ever an Act 250.
Right.
It probably wouldn't, because it's state property, would be exempt from Act 250.
Okay,
But
right.
you know what I mean? Like something we don't want to do.
Okay,
We don't want to data center there. So
Right. You look at what data center
Everyone's
are.
like, if everyone-
Reality is that could be a location for it. So, and I think that would be an appropriate thing to say that, I think we'd rather not.
Try to get broad consensus around things that people would find acceptable there, things that people wouldn't find acceptable there, without, trying to come up with any specific plans since you don't know the property.
Right.
You may have.
That's probably the approach.
That's
Try
true.
to find any common ground.
Yeah,
So that's
that would
very
be fun.
Loose guardrails around it.
Exactly. I mean, we know there's certain things we don't want to happen there. So
Right.
that might be the easiest way to approach it. So that being said, meeting to keep your perspective on it. So is the process normally that you guys are going to come to us for a chapter saying, here's an update that brings us current with the state regulations and everything, and so now you would look to our input to add what it is that the town could bring to that piece, or is that how it looks?
We can look at it from the statutory perspective. You all were going to have more information about the reality on the ground, whether something's been done or not. That was a recommendation last time. It blows. I'm running low on the battery. So really, it's it's got to be a joint effort in that regard. So we could grab one of the chapters from a statutory perspective, and then you all could go through it from that was replaced, so we don't need to continue to say that we're going to replace that.
We just at this point say we can determine what chapter we want to, and let's set it for the next meeting so we go through the process, and so we have an understanding of how this actually works and what our role is and where we are with it.
Right.
I know you know more about this than we do, Harry, but and just at that point, I think it'll help us move forward too.
The first time I looked into it, I compared it with what's required in the statutes. So I have these comments. I will share it with you for each section, each chapter, what we have, what we need to do, what we're missing. So maybe that's a starting point. And maybe if we can also come up with questions for the survey next time. So each one of us could think of a set of questions and we share that.
Well, I think we need to decide which area we want to tackle first that needs to be surveyed.
Let's review it like each one of us reviewed a chapter, and maybe we need to address few things in other chapters that are not. I mean, let's look into the whole document.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to look at the whole document holistically, but break it down into what really do we need to survey.
Yeah.
And then focus on the questions for we determine we need to survey. That means you have homework to read the whole document. We should, okay, here's an area that we really need to public input on. I think, that's a great idea. I think we could make that part of next week's meeting too. Would be good.
I see maybe I'm interested in economic development. I can see that as the driver of virtually everything. Maybe not the languages, but if we're losing jobs, if there's more people retire here than they create full-time businesses, then it's a whole different kind of model for the town. So economic development to me is just fundamental, almost done. And if we can do something, I don't really see data centric. So, if we can see businesses, and I'm restoring an old house at the moment, and I have maybe 6 different contractors that have been helping me, and I see people that have got many, many years of experience with no sort of apprentices or trainees or juniors coming up behind them. I can think of 2 that way, when they do put the boots up, or whatever you say, it's finished. And then I see there's a couple of younger, less of experience, but looking at the new technology. Say like solar panels, for example, some of them on the electrical. But it's small trade sets, and that's just on the building. And, lots of people say, we can't get this contractor. We can't get, there's a shortage. I don't see any kind of apprenticeships or technical colleges that are really supporting people in.
Well, that's where the educational side comes in, and actually there is the technical center, through the deemed infinite wisdom of the education department in Vermont, decided that Windsor could not, when we built our new school, have a tech center. that it had to go and join up with Hartford's. So our kids go to Hartford for that. And of course, Hartford, they're a fairly large high school, and there's only a certain amount of space. So yes, the kids who want to go there theoretically can all get to it, but I've heard stories that not everybody who does actually can. And that was determined a good while ago, and it had to do actually something getting the monies and everything approved for the school. Yeah, we'll let you build a school, but you can't have that because we want to support the one up here. And so that kind of politics that's been played at state levels and other levels are what is the bane of Vermont in the first place. That the state seems to think what the locales need, and they're wrong 90% of the time. And our expectations many times are not there. What did we suss out with for Windsor for housing? Last I heard it was 300 units by 2030 something, 2035 or something like that, which is that's nice to say.
I don't have that in front of me, but yeah.
We have to write that on the town plan as a goal. It's disingenuous. We all know what's going to happen.
Well, that's what drives the economic development, because if you don't have enough population, if you don't have enough people entering each business, like how many people are buying from that shop. So if you don't have enough people in the town, and we will not have enough people if we don't provide housing. That's the only way how to increase the population.
That's right.
Hasn't been growth in this town in a long time.
No, well, there's been declines since good here.
And we should also
We
focus.
found a solution for what happened to that, because large manufacturing has historically in this country gone away anyway for that. So there, we have some employees at the Artisans Park. All of that really has been a big help to us. And I think looking at that model that seems to have worked, they try and expand on it more. We've been doing that. It's not like we're not trying to attract more business down there. And there is more space that could be built down there. But it is going to fill up fairly soon as to what, you can physically do space-wise with it. So, and you're talking about the economic development side, that's going to be the point where, and the vision, what do we want? What can we attract? What kind of business can we bring here? And what will our landlords that occupy all the prime places in Windsor allow us to do? That's the other part of it.
What age groups actually we're attracting as well? So we don't want to end up with only retired population.
No, we have to offer something to, it would be nice to have a technical company like when Sheldon was there. They were in the cutting edge of doing some very sophisticated technology, but and they had to deal with nanotubes. And unfortunately, they didn't have the resources, the backing, and everything else. They got eaten up by other countries, and then primarily China and all that. Just pretty much trashed the business. But that was the kind of business that you would find, well-educated, youthful people who'd want to move into town, buy a house, raise a family, all the patterns that come out of that. And having another restaurant isn't going to fix our problems. Not that we have bad restaurants, but we need those things. You'd say, okay, so what do we do now? Do we become a bedroom community? This is the vision side. I was saying before, how do we figure this out? Are we a bedroom community? Are we going to be try to become a tourist community? We're going to try to bring something in that be an attraction to bring people to town. We had the Constitution House that's been closed for a couple of years. And it still gets, by the way, almost every time I drive by there, there's somebody with an out-of-state plate in a car standing across the street with a camera taking a picture of it, and they can't go in it. It's like, it's a legitimate attraction that keeps people here that can do more, but no, it's the state's timeline to open that up. It's not 2028.
That's actually a good question for first question on the survey and at the public forum. Yeah. What is your vision for Windsor? Primarily residential community? Would you like to see more, small manufacturing or whatever type of thing you're describing?
It's like an artisan park. I mean, Harpoon was the anchor that really got all
And
that.
that's people to prioritize those things, because, you know, if you're just saying,
Sure.
you just say yes to everything, like, yeah, that should be it.
Yeah. Do we have an all of the above?
But you also don't want to have all your eggs in one basket or two baskets because
No,
you know,
and, well, Windsor has learned that lesson the hardest way.
I mean,
Because when Goodyear closed and then Combs closed, there was nothing left. This town was based on those two businesses.
and that's one thing I thought was strong about your economic development chapter. It's, you know, these are our assets, and there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
And you've got rail, and you've got, you know, a lot of excess water and sewer capacity. I mean, there's a lot of good assets to attract businesses here. So I guess what's missing, you know, that maybe you need to try and bring here, or, you know.
And that's why, I mean, James is right. The economic part of the town planning is going to be big, and it's going to take us some time. That's going to be a big time consumer, I think. That and the land use are probably the two biggest ones that we're going to have to figure out, because they're kind of interconnected.
Right. And housing.
Because we can change land use to help promote a direction for economic development. You know, they're intertwined directly. But we digress. You're going to have it a lot. So,
So should we transportation as a guinea pig chapter?
transportation sounds great.
Okay. And Helen was going to start working on data, this kind of across the board, with the goal of September 10th presenting trends and getting some public input on that. And everyone's going to think about survey questions for
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. And Holly's going to bring in all the work that she's already done.
Yeah, I will share it with all of you. Yeah.
I mean, we'll get a chance to look that over, and that'll be a good starting point. Because I know we did spend a lot of time with this, especially Mark and Holly put a lot of time into it. And I don't want to throw away the work that's been done. I want to pick up all the work and start rolling. So,
I can try to start putting some chapters in here. Some will take, you know, more than just one session,
yeah,
and see, do we have enough time? How
great.
quick do we have to move?
This group needs some structure, as you
Right.
can see. It's, we'll just ramble.
I just wasn't sure about, you know, what your typical
Don't be a
process is.
Democrat.
You got to start nudging me again. Hey, shut up.
You're the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the comment I enjoyed the conversation with some from different experiences and different approaches, and I mentioned Harry Potter's took a lot of process, but this will give us a land or seed. And now my notes here is data, survey, and a vision for, say, the transportation, where and the state aspect you're coming in from. Maybe I'm thinking more on the vision for transportation, you know, looking forward.
Right.
But it all comes into the melting.
And then I'm going to be the voice of reality and saying, where's the money coming from? Because if we look at the last town plan, almost most of it that didn't happen was no money.
Oh, always.
And so it's always going to be that way. But the plan says if you're going to focus on grants, you're focusing on whatever. Town plan can say, okay, we should try to go after these things, but you know we're always going to be in the back seat. The money's going to go to Burlington, Montpelier, and everywhere else, you know, and so we're really up against it. And from the federal side, it's only, you know, it's certainly less than where it was in 2019. And from the other side, I don't think the taxpayers, you know, we're getting in a spiral because we need to invest more in certain areas, but we can't spend more money on taxes, so we don't invest. So then, you know, we lose again in the region. So down with
The
the
solution to
spiral.
that,
So
again, is growth.
it's growth. I
You
mean,
can't be stagnating
I
the
know.
population, otherwise that's you just enter into death spiral.
I've been on the budget committee for this, probably be on it again. This will be my 4th or 5th year. And from the first time I was on the budget committee, we started talking about the budget. I said, this is how much it costs and how do we get the money? Just saying, okay, this is what we need and give us some money. That's not the solution. We have to grow. We have to grow. We have to find ways to get more income coming in and quit expecting everybody in town to just pay more as if they can just pay more. Tom's favorite line was, we can reduce taxes by cutting services, and nobody wants to cut services. Okay, that's true. But at some point in time, what are you going to do when you say, okay, we're at a point where we can't afford our fire department anymore because it's not happening, or we just can't pay that amount of taxes. The people can't pay it. And the callous side of that will then have them sell their house, go out, somebody else buy it for more money. The tax rate will go up on their house if you have somebody else there. I won't say he said that wasn't me, but there was somebody who did say that. Who's no longer with us. So I think we do have to focus on the economic side and come up with a growth plan. An attainable, logical way to do it. And then a marketing plan to try to get that to happen. And a lot of that. WIC has been good at trying to work on those things. So anyway.
To James's point earlier about the specificity also, and using the path as an example, improve the path. If your goal is obtain a state pedestrian bicycle planning grant to improve the path, then it's something specific that you're going for. And there are deadlines for when you can apply for that. And, you might not get it the first time, but I know, Weathersfield applied for a grant for a salt shed, a planning grant. Well, but they were jumping right ahead for build the salt shed without getting funded first. So we said, well, why don't you try asking for funding for the plan? So then they did get funding for that. So breaking things down into bite-sized pieces that are specific enough that they can be accomplished. And maybe not having 20 recommendations, maybe have 8 that you really feel like you can accomplish in the next period of time before the plan expires. So that would be another thing to consider. Just really focus in on specific things that you feel reasonably can be accomplished. That reflect the priorities that you want to accomplish. You can't accomplish everything.
Okay. So we know where we're going, and it's transportation.
On the bus.
I think we're ready to move on to other business at this point. Any other business? Somebody else?
Thank you, Martha.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Just one last comment.
Absolutely.
Just very quick one. And there was a meet and greet with Trevor, with the 3 minutes ago. And one thing that I noticed there was a lot of youngsters on the water slide. And I just hadn't noticed so many young children. I guess that maybe, I'm not saying the school, but there was a lot of kids there. So, we talk about it's just more aging people. There's a lot of young ones.
We got a school that kids can actually walk to, which is rare these days.
Some of the common during the middle of the days where there's kids out there. They got the water slide out there. The records got the kids out on the common. They got the kids down at the pond. They have activities like baseball and stuff going on up at the fairgrounds. There's a lot going on in this town for young families, and I think the problem is there's no place for them to move in so they can come and join us here.
Right. I mean, it's one of the kind of last pockets of kind of affordability for and starter homes. Like all of our homes are kind of
Just please tweet a card in here, but my laptop is dying as
I
well.
don't know if it's a TV plus thing, the whole thing, that computer has been known to just,
You know, the power surge.
no, it just goes into sleep mode randomly.
Sure.
I got a feeling that's what it did. It did. Is it plugged in? Yeah, it did. It shut itself off. It did that to me one other time. That's what happened. I don't know. I think we can, unless there's any objections, I think we can continue. It just won't be on the video, but we'll have it in minutes.
Give it a second.
But James, you're right. That's what that each one of these pieces is going to require these kind of discussions. And just some more than others. Are we back? We're back.
It said the call ended because the computer went to sleep.
Yeah.
So you need.
Actually, I checked it a couple of times. It's supposed to never looks. Anyway, we're back. Unless we're at other business now, right? We okay to move to that? And does anybody have any other business? No?
Do we want to ask Trevor to come to one of these meetings?
Oh, absolutely. I'm planning to put together. Yeah, I couldn't make the meet and greet, but I did see him at another event after that. We talked for a bit, so he's where it's going on, and I probably will pop in and spend some time going over everything with him. Bring him up to date on certain stuff. I'm sure Holly has to. Next on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? No. All right, and lastly, the best part of the meeting, we are adjourned